involved with.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the time, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to kind of go over some of the details that are happening in the background without a lot of you guys knowing. Elizabeth is doing a great job getting all the documentation that we needed. And some of you have experienced her going back and asking for additional documentation. Some of you got that right out of the gate. So the good thing is you've got a great set of hands working for you there. So I wanted to kind of go over some of the things. If you guys want to get on Lendio.com, you can see who we are and what we do. Lendio is a business marketplace. So prior to this whole coronavirus scenario, we had about 100 different lenders that we worked with. And our specialty was to help business owners that didn't qualify at the bank become qualified at the bank or get them bridge financing or anything in between there. Now with this whole coronavirus thing, we've actually partnered with thousands of different banks, specifically some of the smaller credit unions as well across the country to facilitate these PPP loans. So with everything that's happening, as you may or may not be aware of, SBA has kind of changed the standards on a lot of things over the course of the last 2 weeks since they originally released the very first application. So part of the problems and challenges that have occurred that Elizabeth and I have been working through over the last couple of weeks have been those implementations and those changes. So Elizabeth, I don't know if you want me to go through the list of your clients and say who's qualified, or if they already know that, or
no, I think they already know.
Okay, all right. So where I am going to touch on is some of you know that you've qualified, some of you don't know, and you're still waiting to know. And so I have a pretty up-to-date list of people that haven't qualified, or I haven't put or notified Elizabeth of your SBA loan number yet. And I want to go through and specifically touch base with those individuals and just kind of give you some feedback as to what I'm seeing. So let me pull that up real quick here. So let's start with All Red Metal Products. So Kevin, I don't know if you're on here or not.
He's not on.
Okay, all right, we'll skip that one then. Let's see here. We've got Creative Therapy Solutions. We have Christina or somebody.
Christina, are you on? I don't see her on here either.
Okay. Leona from Flagstaff Face and Body.
Don't see her on here either.
Okay. Let's see who's next on the list. Got Marsha Rowley.
She's not on here either.
Okay. Got Oliver.
But I'm on here, Elizabeth. This is Barb from Minisoft.
Oh, okay.
Oh, perfect. All right, let me backtrack then. All right, so for Minisoft Inc. specifically, the scenario that we have is you were in the queue as far as waiting for an SBA loan number, and I still haven't received the very last list of people that that we submitted. Now, that doesn't mean that you were the last person to be submitted. I'm just saying I haven't received the final list from our lender, Ready Capital, who is facilitating the loans. As far as when I checked it prior to getting on this call, it still said processing on their end. So there is a chance that you get an SBA loan number and you're a part of the first round of funding. If that isn't the case, and this is kind of applicable to everyone else that I'm going to speak to as well, if that isn't the case, rest assured, we are processing the second round of funding, and we're very confident that there will be a second round of funding. So what I would say to you, ma'am, is just kind of keep in contact with Elizabeth. I should have that final list before the end of day today, and I'll make sure and go through and update it whether you get an SBA loan number or not. And just know that if you do not get a part of those numbers, you know, I will be updating you as far as the second round of funding is concerned, and you're right at the top of the list to make that second round.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Was there a way that they chose who got them? Was it just in order of how they were received?
Yes and no. So there was one thing that that we learned later into the process that we didn't necessarily know right away, and and some of you may know this, but SBA originally, what they said is that, you know, this loan is going to be used for payroll purposes. You can use it for utilities and rents and things like that. And they've changed their guidelines of how they're calculating that. So in the very beginning, they said, all right, we're going to give business owners 2.5 times their monthly payroll. But that monthly payroll wasn't necessarily laid out, and they didn't know if, you know, if it was applicable to payroll taxes and medical premiums and things like that. And over the course of the following weeks, they modified that to say, hey, you can include medical premiums, you can include, you know, these extra taxes. And so some of that created a little bit of kickback from Ready Capital specifically, because obviously when we made those first submissions, the numbers weren't necessarily lining up. So I don't know specifically if that was the scenario for you or some of the things that drove the wheel, but that's some of the feedback that's kind of generalized. That hopefully will give you a little bit of insight into what's going on. What I can tell you specifically about Lendio, and again, this is applicable to everyone, specifically about Lendio, we have about 50,000 different SBA loan numbers that we were able to get qualified. And that number keeps growing and growing. Obviously, it's going to cut off at some point in time once we get the final numbers. But with all our partnerships, we funded over 50,000 different business owners. And with that being the case as well, we have about 100,000 plus applicants that came through us. So, you know, our conversion ratio is pretty well as far as the number of people that we got in comparison to some of the other companies. I spoke with an individual that's here local in Utah, where I'm located, that submitted his application through another party to begin with. And that party had about 100,000 applicants, them alone, and they only funded 3,000 of those applicants. So we feel very confident in what we're doing. And unfortunately, there are going to be business owners that didn't miss that or didn't make that first round. And if you're one of those, I do apologize to you now, kind of giving you that verbal. But over the second round, we will make sure that you make it.
Thank you for the information.
Absolutely. And just so you know, I'm going to post my contact information into the chat stream when we get finished up here. Any one of you, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I know Elizabeth has been the facilitator of your applications, but I'm more than happy to give you an up-to-date information at any given time. If you're not getting that from Elizabeth, she's doing a great job of communicating to you all, but I want you to know you have me as a second point of contact if you need it.
Thank you.
Great. All right, so moving on, the next one that I have on my list is News Quantified. Do we have somebody representing there?
No.
Okay. Let's see here. We got Next Gen Solutions.
Yeah, he's on the call.
Okay. And Elizabeth, the last thing that I had on that list was we were waiting for a driver's license. Did we ever get that?
Did we get that, Ted? Did you send that over yesterday?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So in your scenario, Ted, since the money has officially been allocated to all business owners, and we didn't have the driver's license prior to a couple days ago, I can tell you now that we won't be on that first round of funding. But some of the things that I was explaining to the other company there are going to apply to you, right? You're first in line for that second round of funding. And you know, the reality of the situation is if we look across, there's a petition that's going around that my CEO is pairing up with Representative Nancy Pelosi and some other representatives across the country to make sure that we get that second round of funding faster. But one of the things that he put in there, only 2 million business owners of the 30 million small business owners were qualified in this first round of funding. So it's going to have to come down the line at some point in time, this additional funding.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, Elizabeth, I think the next one on the list is R&R Wholesale, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And do we have somebody?
Brian, are you on? I don't see him here.
Okay. We've got Samuel Cho. We have Dr. Cho on.
I don't see him.
Okay. And then, let's see here, the last one. Do you want me to address Tim Maka? Is he on here, Elizabeth?
No.
Okay. And the very last one on the list is going to be, is it Michael Saucier?
Yeah. Michael? I don't think he's on either.
Okay.
Hey, Elizabeth, this is David from the Mat. Do you got me?
Yeah. We submitted yours through Cabbage originally, and then we're resubmitting to Lendio. So I use different lenders, not just Lendio. So Cody only represents Lendio.
Okay. So am I kind of not applicable to this information then?
Well, just to the general, because it's gonna it doesn't matter who you qualified through. If you guys had any specific questions on the whole process or anything like that, then it would apply. But if for your particular application, no, it does not apply. Does that make sense?
Okay. Awesome. Yep. Thank you.
I can actually speak to that a little bit, David, as well. That company that I was speaking about, that was actually Cabbage. So Cabbage had 110,000 applications over the course of their period to fund, and they only funded 3,000 business owners. So rest assured, you are in very good hands for this second time around. Our process is very thorough as far as our dev team and the people that have built out the application. We've got this so dialed in that unless they change something for the second round of funding of how numbers are calculated and things like that, there's not going to be an issue to get you onto that second round.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So Elizabeth, I think I'll wrap up by just talking to some of the business owners that do have an SBA loan number. Are some of those people on here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I want to talk to you guys specifically who do have an SBA loan number. Elizabeth has done a great job, again, facilitating a lot of this information, but there comes a point in time, and we're pretty much at that point where she is no longer going to be able to be involved for your business, as the lender will be reaching out to you directly to get the remaining closing documents and get any additional information that they may need to finalize your loan. So just so you're aware, the lender that we're going to be working with is Ready Capital. They have a sister company that is Knight Capital as well. So both of those companies may be reaching out to you over the course of the next 10 business days to finalize everything. And they do technically have 10 days to finalize everything. You probably have already received an email from them. If you haven't, please check your spam or junk folder because it's probably going to be there. They're reaching out as of now, introducing themselves to all of their clients to let them know that you guys do have an SBA loan number. Some of the things that I've seen from my clients that have had more interaction with them is that they are at least asking for a voided check. I know that for a fact because they need to know how they're going to deposit the funds into your business bank account, and then also set up the loan agreement accordingly so that if you don't automatically submit the documentation to get forgiveness for the loan, that the payments are set up to automatically withdraw. So just be watching for information from Ready Capital or Knight Capital. They may call or they may email, and it's important that you respond back to those folks because they are the ones that are processing this PPP loan for you. Are there any questions maybe around that I can answer?
What's the time frame look like
So
for getting that?
yeah, so technically they have 10 days from the date of issue of your SBA loan number. Is that Gary that was just speaking?
Yes, sir.
So I'm looking on my list. You got your SBA loan number yesterday on the 16th. So for everyone else that's on the call, you either got your SBA loan number on the 14th, 15th, or 16th. So keep that in mind. They technically have 10 days. They haven't disclosed to us whether it's 10 business days or 10 calendar days, but I would probably just take it as 10 business days. So the reality of the situation is that the worst case scenario for you guys is that you should have funds into your account by the end of the month. because they don't have 10 days to process or to, to get everything started. They have 10 days to finish it. So over the course of the next week is when I would expect a very good portion of everything to start happening. You may get some traction with something today, but I would expect next week to be a very major milestone as far as things moving if you're not getting any notifications.
Thank you.
No problem.
I have a very brief question.
Sure.
This is Krista.
How you doing?
I followed Elizabeth's instructions, opened a new bank account to receive these funds. I do not have a check. I'm
Okay.
some kind of a form for that, but
Yeah, absolutely. You should be able to reach out to that bank. It may be a little bit difficult with what's going on right now, but somebody should be able to speak to you. You can get a bank letter that is on bank letterhead that says, hey, this is the voided check information. I know that some banks will give you like temporary checks too, and they may be able to give you just one check that you can just write void across and snap a picture of that. But very valid question.
Okay, well, is Jerry on the call? Jerry?
I'm here, Elizabeth. How are you?
Okay, good. Do you have anything that you want to say?
Yeah, no. Well, first off, I love this forum. Cody, fantastic job. Really articulating the process. I know it was touch and go there, and we were all optimistic internally that things were going to come to fruition. But obviously, with known, it creates that stress. But I just want to say on the behalf of everybody here, thank you for the opportunity. I represent Heartland, which is the avenue that we submit all of you guys through to Lendio. So my team and I were working with Elizabeth and got you guys in connection with Cody, and Cody was gracious enough to take on all of Elizabeth's requests that were routed through us. So that was just fantastic. The second thing, again, for an advocate, for a support system, you guys really have someone special with Elizabeth. We talk daily, and I know sometimes the conversations weren't the greatest, right? Trying to understand and really truly, get funds for everybody. But I'm glad that we had the success. If I look at it from a whole industry standard, it was less than 11% across the rest of the financial institutions where folks were funded and approved. And if you look at Heartland and Lendio's partnership and relationship, we were almost well over that 50% threshold for us. We took in as a company, Heartland, we sent over about 4,500 applications, and roughly 2,000, I believe, just under 2,000 were approved for the first slate of funding. And then to Cody's point, the second round, which we are very confident is going to come to fruition, people are in line to get that second round of funding as well. So I think we work tirelessly. We want to continue to work with you guys. Any questions you have, myself, Elizabeth, Cody, we're all here to support. I'll include my contact information, but we appreciate the opportunity and looking forward to serving you guys here in the future.
Jerry, could you also, just to clarify, explain that like all of our initial applications were in by April, like it didn't go in order of submission, but like our first round, you and I worked on the weekend.
Absolutely.
April, whatever.
Yeah, so I think it went in, I think it was the 4th and the 5th is when you and I, we were like the day, we talked on that Saturday, right after Friday. And we were submitting, we had a spreadsheet, we started submitting all the information. So we were some of the early first folks to submit these applications directly to Lendio. Then when we saw the opportunity to kind of streamline it all, that's when Cody stepped up and asked to take on all these requests. So yeah, Elizabeth, we were on in that first weekend to really try to get these things pushed through right away.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna wrap everything up. I need to get to a company meeting that I have, but it's been a pleasure to speak with you folks. I put my contact information in the chat stream on the side, so if you haven't seen that yet, please take a look at that. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer those questions for you. And I'm just gonna add one more point before I leave that Jerry was kind of touching on here. One thing I want you all to know is that from a perspective of some of the larger banks like Wells Fargo and Chase and Bank of America and some of these guys, even them have been crippled by this PPP process. Our CEO had a conversation, excuse me, with JP Morgan Chase's CEO about taking on some of their applications that they couldn't fund. So, you know, it speaks to my ears that, you know, we're doing the right thing. We're trying to help every single client as possible. And I'm confident, again, in my statement that second round of funding, those people that didn't make it on the first will be on the second without fail.
Hey, real quick, Cody, this is Jerry. I see some of the chats here. What if some folks, the questions are, if they've gotten approved but haven't gotten the SBA number, what does that mean?
Yeah, I think that would be more specific on an individual basis. Who's asking that question?
I believe it was Susan Wilcox.
Take a look here.
She's not on our list, Cody. This
Okay.
is for all my clients regardless.
No worries.
Okay.
Elizabeth,
If you don't have an SBA loan number, it really probably likely means that either it could be pending, like Cody mentioned, he's still waiting for a final list. But if you don't have the SBA loan number and you don't have the money yet, then it cannot be promising.
Probably not good news. Yeah.
hey, Cody.
Yes, sir.
This is Juan Corsillo. I actually just applied through your website this morning. I got it did not go through for me on another platform that my friend prefers. Do you guys have way too much of a backlog for me to even stand a chance on this next round?
No, not at all. In fact, I'm looking up, you got two businesses. You got Eyes Wide Open 2, and then you've got another one, right? It's Eyes Wide Open Enterprise?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I see the applications in my system. It looks like they were about 30, 40 minutes ago. I'm going to assign them to myself, so you'll know that you'll be working with me directly. And then if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm going to shoot you an email and a text since I'll have that ability through my CRM, and I have your information. But no, you're not too late.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. And the other thing I want to say is that with Heartland and Lendio, a lot of the institutions had stipulations, had to have an account, had to have lending relationship. We wanted to take on as many potential customers as possible. It didn't matter what you had with us. We really truly trying to help everybody. But again, if you have other businesses that are in the need of wanting to kind of push through, I would strongly encourage them to apply through this avenue, because it doesn't hurt. You know, we have the capacity, if we do, to get second round. If we can get more people funded, we definitely have a streamlined process through what Cody articulated to get it done quickly. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, folks, I got to get going. Thank you so much for your time. Like I said, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm going to be here available. Just so you're aware, my office hours are Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. till about 6 p.m. is usually what I'm doing right now to help as many clients as possible, and that's Mountain Standard Time. I'm in Utah. So have a great rest of your day, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just to kind of recap where we're at, I mean, I did send out an email this morning, but I know you guys get a lot of emails. So we applied I created 29 applications. I've spent like 125 hours in the last 2 weeks. The majority of all of these completed by April 7th, and then I've just been following up. Of those, 16 loans were granted that I'm confirmed as of this moment. So I applied for $4.4 million worth of loans, and I received 2.9 so far that are funded, which is 66% of the ones that have been filed. And just to be honest and transparent, I mean, I applied for myself as well, since, you know, my clients are cutting back on their engagements and things like that. And I applied on every single platform to see which one would go through, because it was just my own thing. And I started applying actually on April 2nd, and I am one of the ones that did not get funded. So it wasn't really even a timing issue, because there was like a client I forgot about who reminded me, because in one of my initial communications, I sent out a survey when this was first coming out, do you want help? And I forgot to put the person's name on the survey. So we got survey results back with no people's names. And unfortunately, we thought we had touched everyone, because they actually followed up with me too, but I missed one, who's a really good client, has been a great advocate for my firm. And he did actually get approved, and I submitted his like a week later than everyone else's. So it just didn't go in, like the systems were not like following in a logical, what you would think, format of when, you know, in an order of date or time of submittal. It just, they kept, in fact, the earlier ones, you had to keep going in and re-updating, because they kept changing the questionnaires throughout the process. So, I mean, I am working as hard as I can to make sure that anyone who did not, like those 13 people that did not get funded this round, will, I mean, I will do everything I can to make sure you get funded in the next round. I just kind of wanted to clarify that and say, I wish I had control over this whole process. I would love to be able to be in control of it. And as I said, you know, I have driven Lendio and Heartland absolutely crazy. I sent them like a scathing email the other day when I was like beside myself. I didn't actually sleep for 48 hours because I'm like so stressed about this, because I want everyone. I know businesses are really suffering and needing money. So, I mean, I've done the best I possibly humanly can do to try. You know, I couldn't control that process. And I think the SBA kept kicking things back, and then we'd resubmit. But I don't know what happened throughout this process or why it wasn't in a logical order, because all the people he listed off, we all had those submitted by April 6th. So I don't know, but I would actually request that all of you, in the email that I sent out, if you search like maybe your spam, because I had to send it out via Constant Contact, if you search, if you could click that file a petition now, I really would appreciate it, because that will help. Even if you got funded, other people may not have or didn't. And, you know, like he said, 2 million of 30 million business owners. I mean, I really think, you know, whatever we can do, which is, this is about where we're at, to file this petition to try to help other entrepreneurs that are trying to save their businesses. So
I've signed that, Elizabeth, and you can forward the email as well for others to sign, and I forwarded it as well. So
okay,
we all should do that for sure.
yeah.
What were the statistics again on how many applications there were across the U.S. versus how many were funded that he mentioned?
Yeah, there were 15 million applications, and I think only like 1.5 million in approval fundings.
I mean, just realistically, they're not going to come out with a package that's, you know, 15 times greater than the original one, so everybody gets money, right?
Right. The next round is probably going to only be about 200 billion for the next round, and the folks that have a streamlined process and kind of work through it will be the ones to kind of capitalize on the second round.
I'm just curious, like with this package, like why was there not something that showed that there was need? Because it seems that like there's companies that are getting these loans that aren't necessarily in need. Isn't the whole idea that it was supposed to go to businesses that were having a loss in revenue?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I can take that too. So I don't know if you guys remember way back when in 08 and 09, SBA did another in need kind of SBA program where it was a very thorough process. I forgot what it was called. It was like a distressed SBA loan. Unfortunately, what they wanted to do is they wanted to get these monies ideally out to as many business owners as fast as possible and not put as much stress on the institutions that would be issuing out these money. So in order to make a case for people, there would have to be a ton more of documentation and paperwork and due diligence that I quite frankly don't think that any of the institutions had the infrastructure built to really manage that risk process. So that's kind of how they blanketed it out there, and they put it out there for all businesses. And then they moved it out for these 1099s and sole proprietors to apply at a later date. So giving those folks that really truly did have employees first right of refusal to apply and to get the funding. I hope that answers it, but that's kind of what I've heard and read about and talked to a bunch of peers across the industry.
Yeah, I guess I'm just frustrated because I know that companies that have gotten it that haven't had a loss and they've actually had an increase. And so it's just frustrating that, I'm over here like needing it and I see others just getting free money. So I was just curious if I should just be pissed off or just let it go.
Well, no, I mean, you're absolutely right to feel that way, because that's exactly what the system is drawing out, right? It's it's not fair and equitable across the board. You're right. You've got folks that have gotten approved for money and their business is in dire straits.
Karma's a bitch. That's all I got to say.
Did anyone else have anything else?
Oh,
Thank you for all your efforts in this, Elizabeth.
Yeah, Elizabeth, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
It's not regarding the loan, SBA loans, but it's regarding outside of that parameter. Is the government doing anything else we need to be knowing about, or any other kind of breaks, aid, help, tax breaks, anything?
Well, if I've gotten a lot of calls this week on the, the stimulus. So a lot of people on here probably don't qualify for the stimulus. The deposits did go out for the stimulus. I have some clients that did not receive a deposit because they never get a refund. So they're not understanding why they didn't get direct deposit. It's because if you never get a refund or use your bank account affiliated with a tax return, then the government doesn't have that quickly available. So you're going to supposedly get a check. And if you don't qualify for that, you're supposed to get a tax credit for that. There are a ton of new tax legislation coming out as well in regards to this COVID-19. So I will probably focus more on that next week unless we have new information about the PPP. But a lot of it hasn't been codified yet. So, there's a lot of bills back and forth and a lot of pre-legislation, but not actually how it's going to be implemented legislation. So as soon as we understand, or I understand how they're going to implement it, I can speak about it a little bit better. But there's nothing huge right now that's urgent that you're going to be able to do anything. But there is a lot with the payroll. You can get tax credits if you have to pay people that are sick or need family leave. There's options to defer your 941 taxes and not pay those for almost 2 years. There's options to take, those are the main options available right now in tax, and it all has to do with payroll. So make sure that you have a good payroll system, which you do, Gary. And we can apply for those automatically, and you can get tax refundable credits too. I've had a lot of clients right now that we've done the sick tax credits and the family leave tax credits. So as long as they're sick or they're not willing to, or they can't come to work because they're have, you know, someone to take care of, then they qualify under those guidelines, which I feel like are going to be fairly liberal as far as getting people to qualify for that sick time. So there are tax credits available for that, and then just deferring those 941 taxes can be beneficial, maybe not so much for you in particular, but for some of the other people that have really, you know, $75,000 to $100,000 plus employees. The deferral can make a difference, and a significant difference.
Thank you.
Hey, Elizabeth, what about the 50% employee retention credit? I sent you an email about that. I'm not sure I understand it. How does that work? And I think it's for the people that don't get PPP, correct?
Yes. So if you retain your employees, you're going to be able to apply for this tax credit, but there's still a little bit of confusion about how this is going to be completely deployed. So I'm really not prepared to speak on that at this very moment, but I will get back to you.
Okay.
And I will include that on my weekly call next week.
Great. Because it sounds like that could be sizable, right? It's up to a
Right.
max of $5,000 per person, I think.
Mm-hmm. So if you have a lower paid employee, then yes, you'll be able to take advantage of that. But again, $5,000 to a company that employs, you know, professionals that are paid 75 to 100 grand, it's really not as good as the PPP for sure.
Right.
Anything for 1099s for people who we've retained in a 1099 system?
No, they can apply on their own, but like they can't apply right now. I'm suggesting to people like that, if they can't work, that they go apply for unemployment. That's probably their best bet right now.
What if there are people who we still have to pay commissions out to for previous?
Yeah, but they're not working correctly right now, correctly.
Correct.
Yeah.
But is there any benefit we can, as the one having to pay it, because we're having to pay it now while no sales are going on?
I'd maybe talk to the people and maybe defer that so that they can qualify for the unemployment, or potentially there could be that, you know, you pay that and then stop paying it, and so they can qualify for the unemployment if it's not going to be enough with the trailing commissions.
Mm-hmm. Also, for those who are getting the PPP, we have to be very careful to make sure 75% of that is payroll dedicated, correct?
Correct. 75% has to be, if you want forgiveness, 75% of that has to be paid on payroll in the 8 weeks following funding. Then you do have to substantiate the rent and utilities as well. And so you're not going to be able to include a lot of fluff here, I don't think. Again, they haven't really come, I mean, they've specified what it can be used for, and I've had a lot of questions this week. Well, what if I work out of my house? What if I do this and that? It's just, we're going to have to really clearly substantiate these things to get that forgiveness, because I'm not convinced that they're not going to change the terms here, because they've been changing things throughout the COVID crisis. And we really don't have any money in the United States to fund all these programs. So either the tax rate's going to have to go way up, or you know, after this is all over, or we're going to have some significant changes. And like this particular program is now 1%. It was 0.5% when it first came out as far as interest rate if you don't get it forgiven. So they are going to have some pretty strict parameters. So opening the separate bank account if you can, just to limit the scope of what they're looking at, is good. and then making sure that you're documenting on real rent and utilities. I just got a chat question about Verizon bills. I mean, that is a utility. I would probably argue to go ahead and put that through. As far as rent, it did not say that it was specific to real estate in my understanding. It said rent, but I think that was the intention of it. So whether or not, like if you're leasing trucks, whether or not you're going to be able to put that through is another thing. I mean, I would put through what you can, but remember 75% has to be spent on payroll. And the other 25% is the rent and utilities. So we can try some of these things, but just understand that maybe it's not going to be 100% forgiven, but it's a 1% loan in that case. But we are strategizing with a lot of our clients on how to make sure that we can get it to the 75% of the payroll. And like we've had some suggestions from other clients that we've talked about, like if you have a bunch of PTO that's accrued or things like that, you can potentially lift restrictions on having people cash it in or whatever to make sure that you meet the forgiveness requirements. But there is expected to also be partial forgiveness. So if you don't quite make it, I wouldn't, use this as the sole driving force. Like you still have to run your business, and giving employees free money doesn't always necessarily yield the result you're looking for from a productivity standpoint from your business. So people can get overzealous on what I remember doing this a lot in 04, 05, 06, leading up to the real estate recession. I had a lot of clients in construction and real estate, and they were buying Hummers and RV, just a whole bunch of stuff to write off all the taxes, and they were buying it on credit a lot of times, and they lost all those toys and extras that they didn't really need because they were only focused on saving money on tax. So just remember, like, you have to have a balanced focus. Like you do want to get it forgiven. We can totally strategize about that, but you don't want to get to the point. I can already see a sense of entitlement even among groups of employees that, like, hey, you're doing the best you can, but like giving people free money, just kind of like everyone complained about the unemployment program, about them, if they get the $600 plus the $240, they're making more on unemployment than they were making in their job. Like that has long-term ramifications that are not always positive to your business and running your business moving forward.
And if we furloughed ourselves and then our loan comes through, will we be able to back pay ourselves for the work we did without pay?
You should be able to rehire and repay yourself as long as you're not collecting from other sources. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that'll help to use up within that 8-week period, the 75%.
Yeah, but I was asked, for example, can I just, give myself a raise and pay myself, $100,000 the max, even though I was normally taking a salary of 40. We are going to have to substantiate these things. So it's going to be a tough argument to understand for me to make, to say, you use the loan to pay yourself as the business owner double or triple, where, unless you're giving raises across the board to all these employees in a time of crisis, I don't think that was the intention of the law.
Sure. But if we're reinstating at our normal pay,
yes,
is something that you feel you can substantiate with no problem.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, well, if nobody has anything else, I'm going to sign off here.
Thank you.
Very much, as always.
All right, I'll keep working on the chats and try to get through more of these chats here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Bye. Take care.
Okay, everyone. Thank you. Take care, everyone.
See you guys.
Elizabeth,
Uh-huh.
Tim just sent me a message and said that, I guess, I don't know, was it or whoever was talking in the beginning, because I came on late, that he had said my name. I don't know what that means. Something about a loan or something.
So he was going through the list that we haven't received SBA confirmations yet.
Oh, boo. That's not
Yeah.
all right. I was all excited.
We're still waiting for one more finalist. So there's one glimmer of hope on that. But like, I'm in that same boat that you are. I mean, I applied first for myself to test that system and I didn't get approved either or get an SBA number. So it really did not go in order.
Okay.
And I don't know what happened with that glitch when it said that you were approved and then it didn't.
That was mean.
That was very mean.
So mean to tell me I had it. I'm like, just kidding.
The whole thing is such a cluster.
Okay.
So,
all right.
I don't even know what to say.
No worries. Well, I wasn't sure what he was talking about because I got him late. So, all right. Well, take care and thanks for all your hard work.
See you, Elizabeth.
Okay, bye.
Yeah.
I'm just curious what your thoughts are. Does it make sense to apply to various platforms? Initially, I didn't, and I got screwed. And now I just feel like I got to apply several areas in order to increase my chances.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can do that. I don't know that that's actually going to improve your chances. I applied, as I said, I applied all those. I mean, I applied with every big bank. I mean, I have accounts everywhere. So it's not necessarily, but what I did learn from this I applied outside of Lendio too for clients, that having a good banking relationship, MidFirst is fabulous. Some of these smaller banks
To answer my question.
are the way to go to at least have some accounting relationship with them, because the big banks really fucked up on the process. So that's what my takeaway is from it is establishing a good solid relationship with at least a midterm bank like the MidFirst, the First Security Bank. I got approved, the Alliance Bank. Some of the smaller banks that aren't the big banks are the way to go in the future. Just saying, like, they're the ones who stepped up and actually got stuff done.
Yeah, I agree. I have several friends and who got funded, and they all got funded with small banks like Western Alliance and BNC and a couple of others. And I spoke to my business banker at B of A, and he told me, if I were you, I'd apply at some of the smaller places, because we don't know what we're doing. And he can't help anyone because it's all online, and he's my relationship banker and can't do anything for me.
Right.
Doing business with him forever.
I know. And that's part of what is, just having a solid relationship. I mean, that's how I ended up getting the tip for Lendio early on. Like, Jerry, I've known him for 10 years when he was at Chase, and now he's at Heartland, and he really worked with me on this. And I was really upset and sent them a scathing email, as I said, and was furious, saying they didn't care. And I've just gone through everything this week. So, or last week or whatever weeks we're in, and they still stepped up and kept working with me after that. I had a complete meltdown. So I feel like I got better success. I applied also because the clients were demanding it, because they were frustrated. It's been 2 weeks and wanted me to go to all these bigger banks too. And I did. And I had applied, I have lots of money at Chase, and I have tons of accounts at Chase, and nothing happened with Chase. So I think it's all three big banks, and Wells Fargo was probably the worst of the three. it just doesn't pay. Whereas if you have a person and a, you know, maybe they don't have the online presence and all that, so maybe you can use a combination, but having multiple feeds and close personal relationships with some decision maker or people that can actually get the applications through is super helpful.
Yeah.
Liz, I have a question for you. Hi, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, I had no luck with Chase either. They were not ready to even accept applications when you pushed me to go through with Lendio, and I'm glad I did because I got an approval. So I have a loan number. So I have a question about the $10,000 grant. Was that applied for automatically? Is that available in conjunction with the PPP program?
That system is totally jacked up. I applied for 17 EIDL loans through the $10,000 loans. And only one of the 17 anyone has seen any money from it. One. So that's like a 5% conversion rate. And when you go online right now, they're not accepting any applications. But like when we called, this was not this week, last week, to check on all the applications because we submitted a lot of those first. That program came out before the PPP, and they just said they're not, they're in process and, you know, just wait.
Okay.
I applied for some of those in March even.
I had already applied for it separately before we started talking about this, and I had a confirmation number, but I have not received anything since then. I printed my confirmation number. I haven't got an email. I have not got a request for documentation. Haven't heard a peep. So anyway, I was just wondering. So
I was really hopeful, but the client that did receive it, she didn't receive the full 10,000. She only got 9.
Okay.
And her business is significant. I mean, she has significant employees, and it's disturbing.
I don't know how many of these questions I should ask. I mean, if people have to go, if there's more people on here, I don't know how many people are hanging out, but for me, with my low pay employees, which is all of mine, I run a staffing company for whoever's listening. They make a lot of their money in tips. They're like $10 an hour employees. None of them are going to want to come off unemployment. They're making too much money right now, and it's guaranteed for a longer time than the 8 weeks, which I could pay them anyway. I'm approved for the loan, but there's no way I'm going to make the ratio on the payroll. Are they going to forgive the portion that does meet their criteria? If I make 30%, will that be forgiven? I'll have to pay back the other 70% or whatever. Am I correct in that?
That's what they were saying, is you could get partial forgiveness, but the criteria are the head count and the wages. So they're saying you could rehire by June 30th, but the unemployment program runs longer than that. It's just such a shit show with this offering more money than what people actually make.
Yeah.
It's like a nightmare.
I don't have anything for those people to do anyway. You know, I don't have any work for them to do anyway.
Yeah, there's no events or anything else. So we will definitely try to help you get whatever we can forgiven.
So question B, or part B to that same question, if myself as the only salaried employee files for unemployment and I get the PPP, I'm probably better off taking the unemployment pay and taking that loan at 1% in the long run. Thoughts?
Yes, in that particular circumstance, I think you are. Just because if we can't get any of it forgiven because the head count isn't met, then
the head count is not going to match. There's no way, even if I brought back my 4 full-time people, it's still the head count. Even if I got close to meeting the payroll ratio, the head count's going to be off. So I'll probably do unemployment, put that loan in the bank, have it in my hip pocket if I need it at 1%, no big deal. And then part C to that same question, then if I want to give myself a raise, not immediately, but in the fall, when I have that money, it won't matter because I'll already be paid. So, okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, never mind that question. Next. Okay. So is there at what point do we need to start worrying about documentation? We're going to cross that bridge when we come to it. Let's get the loans, get it in the bank, take care of business, and worry about this down the road.
Well,
Correct?
I would suggest opening up a separate bank account to receive those funds so we can keep everything organized.
Ah.
Yeah. So that way the funds go in the new account, or if you can't get it open and you get take the funds, do not hold up those funds for getting a bank account. But if you can get one, great. And if not, then still open the bank account, just transfer the money in there and then change the payroll to come out of that account instead. So that you are keeping track, because when you're signing off on these SBA PPPs, you're promising that you are going to spend it on payroll, rent, and utilities.
Okay.
And I don't expect, because it's just such a cluster and there's so much new legislation and so many things to track. And the IRS right now is not even working. I mean, they're not processing anything for us. They are processing tax returns, but all the other filings and things that we do, they're all kind of like dispatched to work from home without being able to do anything, even levy or lien anything at the moment. So that's a good idea, a positive for some people, but I don't think that they'll have the manpower or to double check that. But when you are signing off on the loan application, you are agreeing that that's how you're going to spend those funds.
I understand. Okay. Who can we talk with at your office other than you about everything? Can I work with Kevin, or who's going to be handling any of this stuff? You obviously have a lot on your plate. Who are you pawning stuff off? Who should I contact with these little piddly questions like this other than you?
Well,
where's Hiroko? Where's Hiroko?
I know. Where is she? She is. I miss her. Her husband or significant other opened a restaurant. He is doing takeout right now, but he's way down in Gilbert. I did go out there a couple months ago and check it out.
Oh, okay.
So she's working on that. ZT Kitchen. But Kevin is pretty much the most person in the know besides me. He is out today, though. I think I drove him a little crazy this week, so
I don't doubt that.
Personal day to regroup.
Okay, I'll go Kevin and CC you on stuff, but I didn't know if he was qualified to answer this stuff, so that's good to know that we have another resource there if I have any questions, because I'm small potatoes compared to some of these folks. I understand. All right, I think that's it for me.
Okay.
Thanks, Liz. All right, talk at you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm going to hang out in the background just in case anybody else asks any questions that I want to hear the answers to, but I don't know who's left on this chat. So.
Okay.
Elizabeth, does fuel count as a utility for company vehicles?
I don't think it was intended for that. No.
And when we get those loan docs on that PPP loan, there'll be nothing about that 10K associated with that. It won't be in it.
Oh, the 10K from the EIDL program?
Yeah, that free 10K that's supposed to help us.
No, this is a completely different program, and the EIDL program honestly is broken. Like I said, I did 17 applications and I got $9,000 out of it. Bullshit.
Okay.
There's a lot of propaganda on that one.
Okay, and when you calculated how much your client should apply for the PPP, did you base that on the payroll? So it's going to scale to be?
Yes.
Okay.
It also included benefits and the taxes and everything that we could possibly include in there. So I got the most maximum amount.
On a case by case based on each client?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you cut any of those other
ours
things,
to ours and theirs to theirs. And,
yeah.
Okay.
Elizabeth?
Yes.
So if we have submitted, but we have not gotten an approval or an SBA loan number, is that putting us in the second round?
Yes.
And then do you know when we would get the notice of an approval, even before we would get an SBA loan number?
The approvals, honestly, Christina, I don't think she's on the call anymore, but they approved her early on last week, and she's one of these, and she didn't get an SBA loan number. So nothing is approved, in my opinion, unless you have the number. So if you get an email, because they also have all these random email systems, which has been a struggle for the last couple of weeks for the clients, like all these automated systems go out with you're approved, this, that, and the other thing, or this is incomplete, but it really was complete, you know, just a lot of crazy communications that just added stress to everyone. Having an approval doesn't mean jack really unless you have the number.
Okay, I think I came on the call late when Cody was going over the companies that he had applications for. Did he mention Total Freedom?
Total Freedom, he did not mention that specifically. That is on the list, but I think he kind of paused at, you know, towards the last of the alphabetical listings here.
Okay, but we're still on the list.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Anybody have anything else?
That's it for me.
All right. Well, you guys have a fabulous weekend.
Get some rest.